Yeah, if you ask a couple questions, you answer it if you want to. If you don't, that's totally fine. This is your time.
I'm pretty transparent, man.
Oh, I love
Go
it.
ahead, shoot whatever you want, right?
Well, I mean, let's start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a house up on 90th and Fremont from the time I was 10 on, because when I was 10, my mother died. And my dad moved me here from Eastern Washington, and he was a single dad. So he didn't really have time. You know, he was trying to hustle to keep us alive. And so when I was 12, I moved out, started doing my own thing.
Who's us?
Just me, my grandmother, and my uncle. My grandmother was retired, didn't really have much money. My dad was turned into an alcoholic real bad.
Tell me about growing up like that.
Huh?
Tell me about growing up like that.
Well, I started doing my own thing. Various things. Mostly it was selling marijuana back then. Trying to make money for clothes and stuff for school. And eventually the school just fell by the wayside and I got into cocaine.
How old were you?
Sold my first bag of cocaine when I was 13. Yeah, had my own apartment. I was living with the guy I was getting it from. And slowly but surely I just drifted away from my family and kept selling drugs and ended up out here. And like I said earlier, man, when they killed Escobar, they killed Seattle. When I was a kid, everybody down here had money, homes. You were always sleeping at a friend's house, you know what I mean? And now everybody, the family unit in Seattle now is dead pretty much. You know, everybody's out doing their own thing, and there's 14, 15-year-old kids throwing out on fentanyl out here right now.
But when you were 13, you were selling coke.
I was selling to adults.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The kids weren't as prominent. I was real young. They shouldn't even been selling me drugs, you know what I mean? But because I don't know, the disconnect with my family, God just helped me out. Or he thought he was helping me. You know what I mean? And it just snowballed on me, man.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
It seems like I could never get out. No matter how much money I made, you know, every few years, the cops would send me to prison, you know, and then I got to start all over again.
So was there something in you that you like wanted to get out?
I mean, yeah, I'd rather been a normal kid, but it just wasn't in the book, you know, in the writing, I guess. Yeah, I tried for years to stop, man, and I just finally did it. I just did 10 years in the federal penitentiary for thinking about going to buy some drugs.
I don't understand.
They charged me with conspiracy. And conspiracy states that if I agree with an informant to go buy drugs, whatever that informant says I went to buy, that's what they charge you with.
So they gave you 10 years.
They gave me, 109 months. I didn't have any drugs. All I had was a big bag of money. And because one person got in trouble and decided to tell a story. Hey, that's mine. They sent me to prison for 109 months. 7.5 hours of audio and video. Never one time do I say anything about drugs. I talked a little bit about guns, because at the time there was a lot of gunplay going on out here.
What year was that?
2010. The beginning of, the end of 2009 is when they busted me. It was about 7 or 8 days before New Year's. And then they took me to the hospital because I had a gunshot wound. And I escaped from the DEA.
They gave you the gunshot wound?
No, I had it previously. My leg was so infected, the federal holding facility wouldn't take me.
I see.
So they took me to King County Jail. King County Jail wouldn't take me. So they took me to Harborview. And as soon as they were gone, I took off for another 28 days. I went to my dad's in Eastern Washington, and then I came back over, and I think they're watching the freeway off-ramp by my house. And they picked me up like 2 days later. So
Is your dad still around?
no, my dad died while I was in last time. About a year after I got out of federal prison, I started doing the same old thing again. And I got pulled over by a state patrolman. That pullover was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because he gave me a break. He didn't talk about any of the drugs I had to my parole officer. He just told him he pulled me over, and I got 2 dogs that are my life, so I quit. And now I'm back out here. I'm using again, but you know, I'm free, and I'm not worried about cops running me down just because I got a nice car, or, you know what I mean? I was doing a lot. I was doing an awful lot, and I was going back to prison. And now at least I'm free out here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fucked up. But the disconnect is, man, there's no middle class no more. Kids aren't growing up with parents no more. It's getting bad out here. And the city's trying to do whatever they can, but they can only get so many people in housing. You know what I mean? And now, the way the police force is, everybody thinks it's so wonderful because they're defunding the police department. I hate to tell everybody, man, you do not want the federal authorities to step in, and that's what's going to happen. They're going to do the same thing they did with Chicago. The feds are going to step in, and they're going to hand out crazy sentences. Last week, they handed out their first 4-year sentence for pills. And I've been off and on out on the street since I was about probably 17.
How old are you now?
I'm 51. So yeah, I've been out here a while. And I mean, usually I have a place and an apartment or a hotel or something, but without selling the drugs and with my record, man, it's almost impossible to get a job that's decent.
Well, I mean,
the rent here is so crazy that you can't afford nothing. So
that's your job. That's how you get income, right? Is what you're doing, dealing.
Yeah.
It's just your job.
Yep. And that's how I looked at it. And I mean, they gave me all that time. I don't sell to kids. You know, I don't sell to anybody that's not a grown adult that have made a choice. You know, and they still handed me all that time for nothing. It's crazy. It seems like you get forced into it, and then as soon as you have a decent amount of money, they come and bust you and take it. You know, and you can pick anybody out of a parking lot and, you know, tell them to say one thing about a guy, and next thing you know, he's gone for 10 years. You know, they caught a guy with a pound of heroin and a gun. Instead of taking him to jail, the state patrol handed him over to the DEA, and the DEA turned him. Well, they brought him over to me, and they got 2 pounds of heroin out of a vehicle that was 200 yards away from me. And they said because I had a big bag of money with me, that's what I was there to buy. On one person's word. Well, that guy's going to say anything to get out of trouble. And federal judges eat it up, man, and they hand out all these sentences. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. The same charge in the state, they would have never even filed it.
So you feel like that 10 years, they took that from you?
Yeah.
So that's gone.
Something I can never get back.
That's right.
You know? Yeah, and it was all because I had money. That, you know, when I was running around with $1,000 in my pocket, cops never even looked at me. As soon as you get, you know, upwards of $200,000 and they catch wind of you, you're done. They're coming to get it. And they're going to do whatever they have to get it. I told the cop I didn't want to say anything, and he wrote in a report that Mr. Hunlock freely told me he was a drug dealer. So, yeah, it's getting bad out here, man. And I hate to say it, but it ain't gonna do nothing but get worse. These kids are getting more and more violent, and it ain't like when we were kids. You know, everybody's got a camera on the end of their hand, so.
I'm a couple of years younger than you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, we grew up around the same time.
Well, yeah, so when I was a kid, you got shot at, you had to run to the corner to a payphone. You had to call the 911.
What's a payphone?
Yeah, they don't even have them anymore. But, you know, you'd have to run to a payphone, call 911. 911 had to actually contact the precinct house, and the precinct house had to call a cop out. That's 10 minutes you've been getting shot at. It's a long time to have people shooting at you. You know, and now everybody's got a phone in their hand, so they do something real violent real quick and then go. And there's somebody out here preying on these homeless people.
What do you mean?
Well, I've had six friends get.
Somebody?
Yeah, I've had 6 friends get shot in the back of the head in the last probably year. I don't know if I guess you'd call it a serial killer. Yeah, I just had 2 friends die execution style at Gasworks Park. The one guy got shot in the back of the head in the car, and then the woman that was in the car was taken out of the car, put on her knees, and shot execution style in the back of the head. One of the guys that was involved in it said that she didn't have to die, and they almost turned on him. He was involved in it. He was with the people that did it, and he didn't understand why the girl had to go too. And when you do something like that, there's no more friends. People are eyewitnesses now, and they popped her in the head twice and killed her.
Does that scare you?
Me? No, not so much. Because like I said, I've been out here a long time. But yeah, it scares me for my friends. A lot of these people, man, they were normal people before this homeless thing hit them. And now that they're homeless, they don't understand, the rules out here. One slight mistake, man, your life's gone. It's just how it is. And we got a population of Africans here now from Somalia, and there's gangs involved in it. So people are dying at a phenomenal rate out here right now. And the rich class is coming down here. They're starting to get nasty with this too.
What is that? What do you mean?
I've had yuppies come up on me in a group and want to attack me.
Tell me that story.
That's interesting. Right across the street here, there's a place called Office Max, and there's a girl that lived in a tent right there. I came around the corner of Office Max, and I watched this guy kick her through the wall of the tent. 2 days after she had her baby. So when I approach the guy and ask him what's going on, he starts cussing at me, calling me all kinds of names. And I lost my temper. And I ran him down up on Finney Ridge. I left, went and got a bike, and he was drunk, so I paralleled him up the street, and I waited until he got up into a residential neighborhood, and we had a little talk about him kicking that woman. Well, like a week later, him and 4 of his buddies decided they were going to come down here and, try to do something to me. So naturally, I went after the biggest one first, and luckily it scattered the other 3, and they haven't been back to see me. So, but they're just, they own these houses, and they don't want their property values to go down or whatever, so they hate us.
What would you want people of Seattle to know?
Man, just because we're out here doesn't mean we're thieves and we're going to steal from you, or, we're going to ruin your front yard, or... There's a lot of really good people out here, man. They're just stuck in a bad position right now, Like me personally, I don't steal. A lot of these people boost to survive. You know what I mean? I personally, I don't really do it. Because when I was a kid, loss prevention had beat you up. You weren't going to jail for shoplifting, you were going to the hospital. And now with this no-touch policy, their hands are tied, man. They got to do whatever they can to keep you out of the store. So.
What's the no-touch policy? I'm not familiar with that.
No touches. A woman got dumped on her head a couple months back, and it killed her baby. And now the security in these stores, they can't touch you. So a lot of these people are just freely walking in and out of these stores with merchandise, you know, and it's killing these retail stores. So I personally, I don't do it, but I know a lot of people that do, and they're just trying to survive, man. They ain't trying to hurt nobody. It's just, you know, that's how they know how to eat or drink or do drugs or whatever they're doing with the money. I know people that steal that have kids, and their job is to go out and boost as much stuff as they can and sell it off, you know, but they got a newborn baby. So it's a lot more drastic for them than for me, you know what I mean? Yeah, it sucks. It's killing the middle class, man. It forced a lot of these people into bad positions, and it turned them poor, you know. There's a guy, he's gone now, he moved to California, but there was a guy here that at one time he was one of Seattle's #1 defense attorneys, and now he's homeless. Yeah. He got a DWI and ended up in treatment, got back out, got caught with drugs one more time, lost his whole job. Just a snowball effect. And that's what's happening to all these people. If it wasn't for these outreach people, man, I don't know half the time what we do. You know, they provide heat for us and tents, and then you got the Seattle police, they come through and steal your tent and everything you own, so you got to start over. But then they want to complain about us going out and stealing stuff. When you ain't got money, you ain't got a choice. Yeah. And these cops are getting nastier because they're all coming back from the military. I attribute that to all these killings, these police shootings. You spend millions of dollars teaching somebody how to kill things, you can't teach them how to suppress in a couple weeks. They go to a police academy and it's worthless. It goes in one ear and out the other.
They're doing their jobs. That's what they're trained to do, right?
Yeah, they were trained to kill, though.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? They're going house to house in Kabul, and then they come here and try to do the same thing. People end up dead. You know, and it's not their fault. They're just doing what they were taught to do. Muscle memories, you can't change it. And they think they can. Personally, I think if you're ex-military, you shouldn't be a cop. And it's not their fault. You know, they were just taught to do something different than they're being taught to do out here.
I'm curious, it just a thought came to my mind when you were a kid. What did you dream of becoming? I guess it's not a cop.
Definitely wasn't a cop. You know, honestly, I've seen all the guys around me with the money in the cars, and I wanted to be a drug dealer. You know, yeah. And you know what? I never understood just how hard it is to be a drug dealer. You're not working a 9 to 5, man. You're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know what I mean? People, especially with the drugs that have habits, physical habits to them, you have to be there for them. So there's no break. You don't go on vacation. You know, your whole life revolves around making sure everybody's okay. So, yeah, it was a lot easier when it was cocaine. You didn't have the physical aspect to it.
You don't have to answer this, but do you sell everything? Do you sell specific something?
Oh no, I try to stay away from the fentanyl because people are dying from it, but I mean, the fact of the matter is heroin's pretty much dead out here now. It's all fentanyl, so you know, I sell pretty much anything to make money. I try to judge who I deal with. You know, if their use is prominent or it's not, you got to kind of look for those things now, because if you sell it to the wrong person, they're going to die.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And my guess is
that's thanks to our president.
well, my guess is being so long in the streets, you can reach people incredibly.
Oh
well.
yeah. I've been around long enough. I can. But look, man, even I make mistakes.
Right.
I had a kid drop on me a couple weeks ago, and just because he was being greedy, he hit a foil too hard, and it just. I mean, he's still alive. I didn't panic. You know, I breathed for him until he came back. But you know, a lot of these kids, they get scared and run, and they leave them there and they die. So, and you can only educate them so much about this stuff. And I don't. I'll tell you what, if our government would have listened to the drug lords and did what he asked, these blue pills wouldn't even be here right now. Chapo turned those pills down 20 years ago. China tried to sell him the formula 20 years ago, and he said no. But as soon as the government busted him and brought him to America, that guy got a letter out of the ADX, the most secure prison in this United States, to the president, and asked him if he could go do his time at home. And he said no, and he told him, I'm going to unleash the blue devil on you, and he did. And now it's rampant, it's everywhere. Pills, yeah. Those pills have they've turned Seattle into something else. I witnessed it down in California before it made it up here, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, I know that. And all because they just want to put a little guy in a box. You know what I mean? And I understand, look, the guy, yeah, he's a major drug trafficker, whatever, but when people like that give you guarantees, because he told him, I'll go home, I'll do my time. I don't have any problem doing my time, but I want to be at home. He would have went to Mexico and sat down in a prison cell, and he wouldn't escape.
Yeah.
He gave him his word he wouldn't escape, he wouldn't. You know? And because our government's so screwed up, he ignored him. He thought it was a joke.
You have any kids?
I got a son. Yeah, my son's grown though. He lives on the East Coast.
Are you in contact with him?
No, he's mad at me from that last prison term.
From the last prison term?
It's my 5th time, so I've been about every 4 or 5 years they'd hit me for a few years. You know what I mean? I've done quite a bit of time. The state though, if it would have been the state, they would have never even filed charges on me, because I hadn't done anything wrong. You know.
Well, your son doesn't understand that.
No, he just sees that I went to prison again, and he just had I have a grandson too, and yeah, I was a grandson. I had a grandson way too early. My son started early too. He's a computer guy. He went complete opposite direction of me, thank God. But I was supposed to visit my grandson that following Friday, and I got busted on Monday. So I wasn't able to fly out and meet him. I still haven't met him in person.
So he's what, 12 or something?
Yeah, he's got to be like 12, almost 13 now.
When was the last time you talked to your son?
About 10 days after I got busted.
Oh, so that was
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah, he won't talk to me at all. He watched all them prison terms when he was a kid. You know what I mean? So
well,
he thought I was done, and I wasn't.
12 years is a long time. People change.
Oh yeah. He's like me, he's stubborn. Eventually he'll contact me and stuff.
Have you ever tried to contact him?
Yeah, I've tried a couple times, yeah. But he knows I'm out here. He'll get a hold of me eventually. Yeah.
Man, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. Actually, if you want to talk to more people about this, man, I could,
I do.
because I know a lot of these old schoolers that are out here.
Would you consider yourself an old schooler? Yeah, the people that hang out.
20 plus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, when I started out up here, man, I was in Carkeek Park selling pot, and I met this guy pulls in a brand new Jaguar, and at first I thought he was gay. He was hitting on me, but he wasn't. He was just a big cocaine dealer, and he knew I needed a shower, and I ended up living with the guy for like 2.5 years. And then when the bus finally did come down, he gave me up as the kingpin.
He gave you up?
Yeah, he's the one that told on
busted.
me. He got busted.
He ratted
Instead of rolling over on his dad, he rolled over on me, and made me out to be a lot bigger drug dealer than I was. I was the one closest to him in money. I was just a kid, man. I didn't even do drugs back then.
Let's see. You're out when you're 13. How old were you when you met this guy?
Like, it was like 6 months after I left the house, so I was still
you're
13.
a kid?
Yeah, I was just a child. Yeah, I was just a real young kid. And I mean, I knew about the coke and stuff. I was mostly selling weed though.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, he had 2 garbage cans in our kitchen constantly that were full of coke. Yeah. And I had access to it all, so. Yeah, my first cell phone cost me $1,500 a month. And it weighed about 45 pounds, man. It was a box like this. Had an antenna and a coax cable on it. And you had to hook it up in your car and carry it around with you.
Yeah, I'm interested in, I haven't run across anybody with kids yet. I'm sure I will.
Oh yeah, you will. A lot of us don't talk about it.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, again, it's however somebody wants to talk, what
Yeah.
they want to say, what they don't want to say, but I think it's just, I'm trying to just humanize our neighbors. I mean, everyone's driving by here, and you guys are not going anywhere.
And
It's
they
like
have,
it's like they're just,
and I mean,
we
dude,
gotta
they're
coexist.
they're going to the extremes of. I know a kid that's been lit on fire twice out here. Once in a motorhome, and then once they tied the door shut on his van and lit it on fire. Yeah, there's people out here trying to kill us because we're homeless.
I'd like to talk to that person.
I don't know if I can find him. He's here somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
If you ever hear the name Turtle, talk to him.
I mean, I'm just, again,
He's a little paranoid, but if I talk to him ahead of time, he might be. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of these kids out here that got that story. I mean, there was a guy driving around here last year just shooting people. He'd just pull up to you on a corner and shoot you, and then drive off. And miraculously, the police couldn't find him. He's driving a gray SUV, driving around shooting people. It shouldn't have been that hard. Or they didn't really want to find him. Or maybe he was one of them. There's a lot of variables there but for some reason they just never, it really didn't seem like they were putting in an effort to catch him. Or, they were down 200 cops. Maybe they really couldn't find him. Yeah, a lot of these people think that the police are bad too. Not nearly as bad as the feds. That's mine. Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of stuff out here that's changed so much. Yeah, when I was a kid, it seemed like down here, there was cops everywhere. You know what I mean? And the police force was at full capacity probably. And now that they've cut it down so far as they have, you barely ever see a cop. If it's not violent, they won't even come out.
Yeah, I think the pandemic's changed a lot of that.
Yeah, that.
But you're right. I mean, when I was growing up, it seemed like there was a lot more police out.
Oh yeah, you go to the U District, and there was 3 or 4 cops driving up and down solid the whole time, and then there was bike cops, and had a couple prison sentences on that street too. So.
All right, Ben. Thanks
Yeah,
for your time.
the first time they sent me in, man.